On September 13, 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court made a historic decision that would reverberate around the world. In a landmark ruling, the justices overturned the Trump-era tariffs, sending immediate shockwaves through the global economy. Markets reacted with wild swings, and investors scrambled to understand the implications of this sudden change. This wasn't just a minor legal adjustment, it was a seismic shift, dismantling nearly a decade of protectionist trade policy that had shaped the world's supply chains and international relationships. The ruling marks the end of an era defined by economic nationalism, forcing America to fundamentally reconsider its role in global commerce and its relationships with trading partners. These tariffs, once central to the America First strategy, sparked trade wars, redrew supply chains, and hit consumers hard, raising prices on everyday goods and creating uncertainty for businesses large and small. Now, the Supreme Court has reasserted Congress's constitutional authority over trade, challenging the long-held idea that presidents can unilaterally impose sweeping tariffs without legislative approval. For businesses and families across the country, this could signal an end to years of volatility, uncertainty, and rising costs, offering hope for a return to more stable and predictable trade conditions. The decision will echo through Congress, boardrooms, and households alike, raising urgent questions about the future of American manufacturing, the competitiveness of U.S. industries, and the strength of global alliances. As the world watches, this moment marks just the beginning of a new chapter in economic history, one that will be written in the months and years to come. The stakes for the global order have never been higher. With world leaders, businesses, and citizens everywhere watching closely, the future of global trade hangs in the balance, and the decisions made now will shape the world for generations. To truly understand the impact tariffs have on our lives today, let's take a step back and revisit how it all began. The story of Trump's tariffs is more than just a policy decision. It's a saga that shaped global trade, American industry, and even the daily lives of millions. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump made bold promises to revive U.S. manufacturing and protect American jobs. He argued that unfair trade deals, especially with China, were hollowing out the nation's industrial heartland. His message resonated with workers and communities hit hard by factory closures and job losses. Trump's main weapon in this fight? Tariffs, essentially taxes on imported goods. The idea was simple: make foreign products more expensive so American-made goods could compete and thrive. Supporters hoped this would spark a new era of domestic manufacturing and economic growth. In 2018, the Trump administration invoked Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, imposing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. These tariffs didn't just target rivals, they hit close allies like Canada and the European Union, straining long-standing partnerships. The official justification was national security, claiming America needed to protect its industrial base. But many experts and lawmakers questioned this reasoning, calling it a stretch and warning of unintended consequences. Soon the focus shifted squarely to China. The administration accused China of unfair trade practices, currency manipulation, and widespread intellectual property theft, escalating tensions between the world's two largest economies. This sparked a tit-for-tat trade war. China retaliated with tariffs of its own, targeting key U.S. exports like soybeans, pork, and other agricultural products, leaving American farmers and exporters caught in the crossfire. The result was global market turmoil. Supply chains were disrupted, costs soared for businesses and consumers, and uncertainty rippled through the economy. Companies scrambled to adapt, passing higher prices on to shoppers and rethinking where and how they sourced materials. Many companies moved their supply chains overseas or to new countries, while American farmers and manufacturers struggled with lost markets, shrinking profits, and rising expenses. The ripple effects were felt in small towns and big cities alike. Even after Trump left office, the tariffs remained in place, casting a long shadow over the economy and creating years of uncertainty for businesses, workers, and investors. This prolonged disruption set the stage for a series of legal battles as companies and trade groups challenged the tariffs in court, arguing over their legality and impact. Today's Supreme Court ruling marks the dramatic conclusion to this chapter, a decision that will shape the future of American trade policy for years to come. The legal battle began when American importers challenged the president's authority to impose tariffs under the guise of national security. They argued that Section 232 was being stretched far beyond its intent, letting the president wage trade wars without Congress. Lawsuits started in the Court of International Trade, with plaintiffs claiming the law was never meant for broad economic protectionism. The government countered that the president had wide discretion on national security. Lower courts sided with the executive, citing decades of deference on foreign policy. But the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, signaling a major constitutional question. Petitioners warned that unchecked power would let presidents impose tariffs on anything, undermining Congress's role. The stage was set for a historic showdown over the limits of executive authority. The Supreme Court's 6-3 decision, led by Chief Justice Roberts, drew a clear line: the president's power to impose tariffs for national security is not unlimited. The majority ruled that Section 232 was never meant to justify broad economic protectionism, only to safeguard industries vital for military preparedness. This bipartisan majority reclaimed trade authority for Congress, warning that an unchecked executive could regulate the entire economy. The dissent argued that Congress, not the courts, should fix any overreach. The ruling doesn't instantly erase all tariffs, but it strikes down the legal foundation for the steel and aluminum measures. It also sets a precedent for challenging tariffs on China. The message, future tariffs for economic reasons, need explicit congressional approval. The balance of power in trade policy has shifted. Markets responded instantly. Stocks surged, especially for companies reliant on imported metals and for agricultural exporters. Investors saw the decision as a step toward stability and predictable trade. Politically, reactions split. The White House issued a cautious statement, while Congress divided along party and regional lines. Pro-tariff lawmakers decried the ruling as a threat to American industry. Opponents called it a win for consumers and the rule of law. Former President Trump blasted the decision, claiming it endangered U.S. manufacturing and handed victory to foreign competitors. The debate over trade policy is far from over. The Supreme Court's verdict has reignited fierce political battles. The future of American trade is now a central issue in national politics. For consumers, the end of tariffs means lower prices on goods like cars, appliances, and construction materials. Manufacturers will see reduced costs, likely passing savings on to shoppers. Industries that use steel and aluminum, like automotive and construction, stand to benefit, potentially expanding and hiring more workers. But for U.S. steel and aluminum producers, the loss of tariff protection brings anxiety over job security and plant closures. Union leaders warn of layoffs, while others argue the broader economy will gain. The ruling challenges the idea that tariffs are the best way to protect American jobs. The focus now shifts to supporting workers through job training, innovation, and new economic strategies. The transition will be tough for some, but it opens the door to a more competitive future. America must now debate how best to support its workforce in a global economy. The Supreme Court's decision sent shockwaves across the globe, capturing the attention of world leaders, economists, and everyday citizens alike. U.S. allies, who had long been frustrated by the tariffs that strained diplomatic and economic relationships, welcomed the verdict as a sign of renewed cooperation and stability. The ruling was seen not just as a legal milestone, but as a signal that the United States was ready to re-engage with its partners on fairer terms. Countries like Canada, Mexico, and the European Union now see a real opportunity to reset trade ties, rebuild trust, and drop retaliatory measures that had hurt businesses and consumers on both sides. The decision paves the way for smoother cross-border commerce and renewed dialogue on shared economic interests. The ruling also sets a powerful precedent that could challenge existing tariffs on China, raising hopes for a more balanced approach to global trade. However, it's important to note that core disputes over intellectual property and technology transfer remain unresolved, leaving some uncertainty about the future of U.S.-China relations. For the global economy, this verdict signals a return to rules-based trade and strengthens the credibility of institutions like the World Trade Organization. It reassures markets and investors that international norms and agreements still matter, and that disputes can be resolved through dialogue rather than unilateral action. The United States now has a unique opportunity to reassert its leadership in global trade, potentially joining new agreements, setting high standards for commerce, and shaping the future of international economic cooperation. The verdict encourages negotiation over confrontation, inspiring countries to come together and find common ground rather than resorting to trade wars or protectionist policies. America's pivot away from protectionism could reshape the landscape of international commerce, opening new markets and fostering innovation and competition on a global scale. The world is watching closely to see if the US will truly lead on open markets once again, and whether this decision marks the beginning of a new era in global trade relations. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's decision stands as a turning point for global economic cooperation, offering hope for a more stable, predictable, and prosperous international trading system. The next moves by the United States will define its role in the world economy for years to come, shaping not only its own future, but the future of global trade as a whole. Economist Paul Krugman has long argued that tariffs are just taxes on Americans, not easy wins. He points out that while steel and aluminum jobs saw small gains, larger industries lost more jobs due to higher costs. The overall trade deficit actually widened, showing tariffs didn't fix the core problem. Krugman dismisses the national security argument, noting most imports came from allies. He sees the Supreme Court's decision as a win for the rule of law and economic sanity. The court called out the misuse of national security as a pretext for protectionism. Krugman urges the U.S. to invest in innovation, education, and alliances, not outdated trade barriers. The ruling is a chance to move towards smarter, future-focused economic policy. It's an opportunity to leave failed strategies behind and embrace real strengths. The Supreme Court's ruling marks the start of a new era for U.S. trade policy. By overturning the tariffs, the court has ended a decade of protectionism and reaffirmed Congress's authority over trade. Future presidents will find it harder to launch trade wars unilaterally. The challenge now is to craft a national strategy through debate and legislation, not executive fiat. Industries and workers will face tough adjustments, but the focus must shift to innovation, education, and fair competition. This is a pivotal moment for America's economic future. The conversation is just beginning. What kind of economy do you want to see? Stay informed, join the debate, and help shape the next chapter of American trade.